This is Dan Mumm. Today I've got a lesson for you that's a game changer. This is basically the key to neoclassical guitar. The concept we're about to go through is foundational to Baroque through classical era classical music, and it's incredibly powerful. Naturally, this is everything for neoclassical guitar. When you really understand this, it's going to open up limitless possibilities for your playing, and it's going to make you a much, much better guitarist. In short, we're going to be taking a standard neoclassical progression, and we're going to be using it to build several variations. We're even going to be mixing a couple of them together. I'm going to try to keep the explanations to a minimum here so we can focus more just on these patterns. If you want to get deeper into any of these concepts, I recommend checking out my course, The Infinite Neoclassical Method. Before we get started, you're going to want to download the tabs, and you can get those for free by following the link in the description. To get started, I'd like to share with you a little quirk on the guitar, and this on its own is extremely powerful. That is that, technically speaking, at least from a certain point of view, there's only 3 types of triad shapes on the guitar. And we're going to work through those for minor, major, and diminished before moving into the actual progression. For this demonstration, we'll be using E as the root note for each of these. So it'll first be E minor, then E major, and then E diminished. For the first shape, it's going to have 2 notes on one string and then 1 note on the next string. So we've got the root, the third, and the fifth. For the second shape, it's going to be 1 note on the starting string and then 2 notes on the next string. And then on the third shape, we're going to have 1 note per string on 3 strings. For the next exercise, we're just going to be playing through the root notes of the chord progression itself. Everything we're going to go into after this is going to be built on these root notes. So make sure to take some time to memorize it before moving on. Now let's go back to those triads. This time we're going to be playing the triad for each chord of the progression, starting on the root notes from the last exercise. So none of these pattern shapes will be new to you now because we went through all of them in exercise 1. Now we're just playing them in the order of the chord progression and using the root notes from exercise 2. This applies to everything we're about to go through, but there's no need for you to play any of this at full speed right now. Just take your time with it, make sure to memorize it, and just work on it until you can get it down to an even and comfortable speed. So take it slow and work with the metronome. Make sure to get these memorized before continuing. So just like we did with the triads for the last exercise, we're going to be now using a motif and iterating it for each chord of the progression. It's the same idea. So basically with the triads, it's the same shape, right? It's the same type of pattern. It's 3 notes. Each one skips a note. So you get the root, the third, and the fifth. And that's the abstract pattern of a triad. That's something that we can get into another time. But we're going to be taking that same concept and applying it to a melody, a little tiny melody that we're going to call a motif. And then we're going to run that motif for each chord of the progression. So for this first variation, the motif will sound like this. So that would be for A minor. When we move on to the D minor, we're going to play the same motif, just now starting on D, that same shape, it's the same abstract pattern. Since they're both minor chords and they fit similarly within the scale, basically exactly the same thing, just up a string. So for A minor, for D minor. But now when we move to the G, it's going to change up quite a bit. So now we have a major triad that this is going to be based on, but we're also going to be using the third type of triad shape as the foundation. So again, it's the same abstract pattern, the same motif, just the shape is going to change. So for the G, it would sound like this. And then the next chord, the C, again, major chord, fits similarly within the scale, so we get an identical pattern shape, just up a string. And then it continues in the same way. You'll find that these variations are excellent for practicing alternate picking. And if your alternate picking isn't quite there yet, don't worry about playing this at full speed. Just take it slow with the metronome, memorize it first, and try to get it to a comfortable, even speed. So for the second variation, we're going to be using a pedal tone pattern as the motif, just a short pedal tone pattern. And just like we did for the last exercise, we're going to be iterating that pattern for each chord of the progression. So the motif for variation 2 sounds like this. And just like we did with variation 1, we just run that for each chord of the progression. So this would be for A minor. So for D minor, for G, and that gets a little more difficult there because we're going to be doing some string skipping. So take your time with it. It's going to continue the same way through, just like we did for variation 1. For the third variation, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. This time we're going to be combining the motifs from variation 1 and variation 2. And we're just going to be alternating between them. For the first chord, we'll be playing motif 1. For the second chord, motif 2. Third chord, motif 1. Fourth chord, motif 2. And so on. Now, as you can tell, this opens up a whole world of possibilities on its own. Obviously, you could switch these around, play motif 2 and then motif 1. You could play motif 1 3 times and then motif 2 on the 4th time. And of course, bring in new motifs, as many as you want. There's just unlimited possibilities. And obviously, you can add some improvisation in there and so forth. So I've got one more variation for you before we wrap things up. And I put this one here just to help ensure that you really have this concept down by the time we're done. So this motif is made up entirely of the notes of the triad. And you'll recognize this as being similar to a type of arpeggio that's common in both neoclassical and Baroque classical music. So this is the motif itself. Now what I'd like you to try doing is mixing and matching this motif with the ones from variations 1 and 2. And that'll make an entirely new variation. And once you've done that, you should try experimenting by making motifs of your own. And you can just modify these motifs as they are, or come up with something entirely new. You could make a little melody, do something with the rhythm. You could double the amount of notes for each measure, and so on. So that's it for this lesson. Now, I highly recommend that you take the time to run the same concept through different chord progressions, make motifs of your own, try mixing and matching different ideas, maybe even taking motifs from well-known classical music, and so on. You can do so much with this, it's mind-boggling. And once you internalize this concept, it's an absolute game changer for writing new music, soloing, or improvisation. If you'd like to dig deeper into this and related concepts, and get more into the nitty-gritty, a little more theory and all of that, I highly recommend that you check out my course, The Infinite Neoclassical Method. This whole lesson is basically a simplified version of the foundation of that course, and it goes way beyond what we're doing here today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.